Alright guys, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a follow-up video to the JCM 800 pedal. So watch part 1, this is part 2. Here's the pedal right here. I think there's some things here that you might be interested in, before you buy this pedal. So, and then what I'll do is at the end of this, I'm going to do another demo. So this time, the first video, what happened was that I think I was too close because the amp is on the floor. So I'm going to put it right here, put the mic right here, and then just kind of turn down the amp a little bit so you can hear it. So that, it doesn't sound all that crappy because people were like, oh, this sounds crappy. Okay, anyway, two things I think you should understand, which I thought was kind of weird. So first of all, this is made in Vietnam. Okay, this is made in Vietnam. Like I said, very solid metal, right? Very sturdy. Takes a normal power supply. And if you watch the first video, I got the last one at Guitar Center at La Mesa. You could still order it online, but people are obviously buying it. So this is made in Vietnam. So if you know the history of DSL1, I think this is going to benefit the DSL1 people the most. I'll make more videos on this because people want to, before they make an investment like this for $150, which is kind of an expensive pedal, right? People want to know more information. So if you know about the DSL1 history, they're basically made in Vietnam. And I think there's a story where there was like a batch made in Vietnam that was bad or something like that. But either Vietnam or Indonesia, so this is kind of weird that this is made in Vietnam. And also we know that Marshall just got bought out by the Chinese, where the Chinese own 80% of Marshall. So this is not made in China, it's made in Vietnam. And let's see. It does have an England reference here, or an address really, but then it says made in Vietnam, and it's got Chinese writing at the bottom, so I don't know what to make of it. So made in Vietnam, but it's got what appears to be Chinese writing at the bottom. Maybe that's Vietnamese writing, I don't know. Well, maybe it is Vietnamese writing, I don't know. It doesn't look Chinese, you see? I don't know if you can see it. So anyway, so it comes with the leggings here separately, and then I had to, they're basically like you just take the sticker off and then put it on. They're glued on, but then the screws are underneath here. And if you look real closely here, it's hard to get this focused, but it says do not open. So I thought that was kind of funny. So they don't want you opening this up. And then there's 4 screws right here, right underneath the, the legs, the rubber feet, right? So, and you just put it right over it. So it says do not open. It's kind of weird. Because, the first thing people are going to do is they're going to open it, right? People that want, competitor, that might want to develop what's in this pedal to get the sound. So I guess that's for them. That says do not open. It has no other instructions really. Made in Vietnam, do not open. So I think that's important for you to know. And here's the box. We did the unboxing in the first video, so check that out. So another thing here, let's see. And of course this is, it's got the Prop 64 warning, exposure to chemicals, including lead, which is known to, cause cancer. They have to put that in California. So Prop 65, yeah. All right. Which is basically everything nowadays. Everything has a Prop 65 warning. In California, they have to basically, tell you and disclose this. So, one other thing in this booklet here that I thought was kind of strange. Yeah. So, let's go back to this back here, which is kind of a conflicting statement, right? So, here's the there's like a blurb there. I read this to you on the first video, but I'm going to go back to this one sentence here. This pedal captures the distinctive tones of the JCM 800 amp series. Again, this pedal captures the distinctive tones of the JCM 800 amp series. That's what it says in the box. Remember that if you see this at a store, right, you're probably going to read that and be like, oh shit, JCM, let's get it, okay? However, in the inside, we have a colorful adjective here. And you always have to be, linguistically speaking, you always have to be careful about adjectives. Inside it says this. This, I didn't read this to you in the first video. Page 3. Okay. So, congratulations on purchasing your Marshall JCM 800 pedal. This pedal is inspired by the revered JCM 800 series of amplifiers and their bright cutting distortion. Did you catch that? Inspired, right? So that's completely conflicting from this, right? It's one word, it's a different adjective. So this tells a different story because adjectives are like modifiers, right? Now you've modified this to where the story, right? You modified the narrative to be, now it's inspired. So it's not the same. We already knew that. So the way the tones respond will be instantly familiar to those range from crunchy grit to heavy growl. Again, couple more words that are alarming. Instantly familiar. So clearly stating that it's not the same. So I'm an electrical engineer. I went to San Jose State, and just from the engineering perspective, obviously, the JCM 800 amp is, vacuum tube based. So this is transistor based, or however they're doing it, op amps or, transistors. I'm not sure what's in here. So that's why it says do not open. They don't want you to know. So, but it's heavy. So maybe there's a lot of circuitry in here. I don't know. We don't know. So I don't want to open it because what if something pops out and you can't put it back in? Maybe that's why they say do not open. Who knows? So, unlikely, but I'm just making a joke. So there's no way that they could, it's not the JCM 800 circuit, and you just swap out the vacuum tubes with the transistors, because that's not how, electronics work in general, because vacuum tubes are biased differently than transistors. Right? If this uses, I'm pretty sure that this probably has some, hopefully it's not all op amp. It is a little noisy, right? But just a tad noisy. So for this price range, I think this is overpriced. So I think this should have been $99 like most pedals are. And then for $150, I don't expect that little bit of a noise. But again, it could be coming from my guitar also because I have a grounding issue. So there's a little bit of that hiss that you're like, what, $150, you shouldn't expect it. But like I said, it's not the JCM circuit, and they just swapped it out with transistors, hence they can put it in here, right? So that's not how electronics works. So we've heard these key phrases here, inspired by, it should be familiar to you. So what's happening is that the way, my focus is on basically signal processing. So this is all I do. Like I could potentially, design like a simple, pedal myself, right? I should be able to. So that's kind of, they don't teach it to you at school, but like I said, it's analog electronics. But like I'm saying, the degree ought to be worth something. It didn't get me a job. So seriously, I've been out of work for 2 years. So don't do STEM, kids, because you'll never find a job. Honestly, I do AI, EE. I've been benched for 2 years. So these jobs, too much competition. 700 people applying for engineering jobs. Anyway, so from that point of view, that's not how it works. So, it's not just a swapping of parts, and it's probably not, it is not the same circuit. So without the same circuit, so this is an approximation. So most devices in signal shaping, I thought I had a little hiccup right there because it was like freezing. So most devices, when we're talking about signal shaping and stuff like that, so the JCM 800 has what we call a characteristic curve, right? Just like a Shure mic, if you look at the frequency response, if you looked at the brochure, right, it usually has a frequency response that sort of colors the mic. So, you're hearing the mic more than the singer. So that's why anybody who sings through a Shure mic has, kind of sounds similar. Their style might be different, but the tone will be similar because you're hearing the mic more than the singer most of the time. So electronic amplifiers are the same way. So there's a characteristic curve here. I would like to draw it for you, but then I don't want to bore you with, engineering details. So basically, my point here is that they probably work backwards from there. So they have a characteristic curve. We don't know what this curve is. Because if you knew that curve, you could basically emulate this, right? So signal goes in and comes out. The signal is modified a certain way, and then you have all these kind of parameters, right? You have all these levers that basically can, modify the signal one way or another, right? Maybe boost it a little bit, boost a certain frequency a little bit. That's the tone, things like that, right? Sensitivity, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So anyway, they probably started off with that characteristic curve, and then they just built a circuit that closely matches it. Hence, it's an approximation. So it's not the same. So basically, long-winded explanation here is that it's not the same. It can't be the same because you can't just swap out vacuum tubes with transistors. Hopefully, I didn't lose a bunch of people here because nobody gives a shit about this. But basically, it's it's an approximation, an emulation, inspired by. So obviously, just from a consumer point of view, common sense point of view, you should gather that that thing costs like, what is it, like $2,500, $3,000, right? Even the 20 watt, I think, costs like $2,000. So, they're not going to give it away for 150, even if they could, which they can't because, vacuum tubes, transistors. But even if they could, they wouldn't, right? So, quite the different story on the outside, which is what you might see. Somebody might read this and be like, oh, this pedal captures the distinctive tones of the JCM 800 amp series. Wow. From that, I read it captures it, so it's basically, at least a clone, right? And then when you go in here, it says inspired by. And then it said, these tones should be familiar to you. So, brilliant marketing there. All right, so those are the two things I think. That made in Vietnam, it's been acquired by Chinese now, the company. So this might be the last few products that aren't completely, in the direction of the new Chinese, overlords, whatever they are, maybe they might change everything. So this is made in Vietnam, so is the DSL-1. So this amp, this pedal is really for people who have DSL-1 and they want a sort of, I hate to say it this way, but kind of a, like a fake JCM sound. But it sounds pretty good. It sounds just like the album. So I will demo that for you in a bit. Hopefully better than the first video. So I already talked about these four things: gain, sensitivity, tone, and volume. Right? Tone. Now, I haven't played around with this enough to give you, like the exact, specifics of how this is. I'm just kind of, telling you what my first reaction is. So tone is more like a presence knob. So, if you have an EQ, you should use the EQ on the amp. And if you have that EQ'd to where it's really trebly, right, then you want to turn this down, right? You don't want, this will make it more trebly or more, So, in that sense. Is it a real presence knob? I don't know. Probably not, but it kind of acts like a secondary EQ. You can think about it as a secondary EQ or like a presence knob. But remember that the guitar is going in here and going in there. So it's like a different sort of thing. It might be different than a presence knob, within the amp, right? But it sort of acts like a pre-EQ, and then the way you hear it, it's kind of like a presence knob. So, and then sensitivity, like I said, it seems to add more grit. And you watch the first video where the picking, right? You can hear the picking more if you increase the sensitivity. So, according to this, it's a secondary distortion circuit, right? So I think we should talk about that in a bit. So, sensitivity. Oops, I'm on France here. French language. A second distortion circuit to access different JCM 800 tones. So, people in the comments have suggested that, oh, this is like a gain, like an additional gain, right? So that was one of the comments. I'm just telling you what the comments were. So maybe it gives a little bit of a boost, right? But it says different access different types of tones. So maybe it's that high low end kind of thing, right? Sensitivity. So I guess that's a good word for it, because if you increase the sensitivity, you can hear the picking more. So in that sense, right? So maybe a little bit of gain in there. Maybe, you know, maybe it's just, you know, it's a type of it says tone. So, but remember, distortion affects tone also. So it's a kind of a, this is why I told you yesterday that this is not for the person who just wants to plug in and get a tone. I had to muck with it for an hour to get a tone because you have all these levers, right? You have gain, sensitivity, tone, volume, and then you have another EQ on your amp. All right, so now we will go ahead and hopefully I will do a better job at it. It does sound pretty good. I mean, you know, $3,000, if you can't afford that, I would get this. Right, I would get this, but there's a little bit of a marketing kind of exaggeration because, like I talked about, this doesn't go into the clean channel well. So I'm going to go back to the setting that I had last time. I keep the sensitivity at about a 7. Okay. Kind of like a booster pedal. So let's try to, oh, actually, you know what? Let's try to do the first thing again. So in that case, we have to increase the gain. So let's try to do the first thing where it goes in the clean channel. So I'll have to cut this part out when I'm ready. I'll come back in, okay? Because I have to. All right, guys. So what I've done is we're just going to go through the clean channel really quick, okay? So, I don't know. This doesn't sound good to me. It's not enough gain. It's like it's almost at the cusp of breaking up, but not really. Since I'm going through this mic, so I have to speak a little bit louder. Just turn it up on your end if it's too low. So that's the thing. I mean, I guess, like I said, maybe for like, you know, if you turn up your amp really high, maybe that'll sort of break it up even more and contribute to it. But going straight in, you're not going to get that rich kind of sound. Just sounds too kind of like a if you put like a, it just sounds like not enough gain. So I don't know. I don't think that you're going to be able to just plug this in to like any amp and then this is like a standalone. It shouldn't be like that because think about it like this, right? This is not a preamp, so it shouldn't really, you know, that's kind of a marketing exaggeration to where it shouldn't really drive it. So we just kind of fell for it, I think. I wasn't going to use it for that anyway. So, but like I said, maybe you can get it to work. So you should really play around with it if you can at your guitar center or whatever. So we're going to go in to the other channel here. So I have a grounding issue on this guitar, so that's the hum you're hearing. So I'll play some riffs here. So if I turn off the pedal, so you can see how this pedal just kind of sits on top and colors it. So anyway, that's the thing. Very sensitive to where if you move one or two things, it's going to sound completely different. it sounds quite different today. And then maybe I had like, yesterday, because, it was like a big day. I went out and got it. And I'm like, confirmation bias, like I said, to where you're just like, wow, I got to have this and this is the greatest thing. Today I'm sitting there going, okay, why isn't it sounding like yesterday? Like I said, little things here will make all the difference. So, yeah, I'll just have to live with this one. So, you heard what it sounds like. Most of it sounds like this. So, without the pedal, it will sound like this. So, I don't want to suggest this, but you almost can kind of get away with just, if you know how to EQ, right? Just sort of get a feel for it. I'm not saying I'm going to return it, but get a feel for it, and you can just find that in the EQ if you know how to EQ a little bit, right? So, I don't know like how much you have to sit here and tweak this over and over again. But you need a healthy amount of distortion from the amp, right? People have suggested, for the clean channel, stack it. I don't know. But like I said, this was sold as like a standalone, right? So maybe I would really try. I don't want to cast judgment and discourage you. So you should really try it at your local store if you can. Let's see. We may actually sing some Priest. I'm like a singer, so all right. So I think let me play some Slayer then. So it sounds like you could use a little bit more high end. Too much. Like I said, you need a healthy dose of gain from there. Maybe a little bit more. It's like that magic setting, and then if you just tweak one little bit, it's gone. Yeah, I mean, this is... I gotta find the sound. I mean, this is gonna take some time. Like, you may have to just keep playing with it forever, I guess. I had a good sound, now it's gone. So all I did is see, I played with the EQ, I hit the treble just a little bit. So that's where you're going to get the tone. It's your EQ. So this just gives it a sort of a flavor and then a boosting. See, without it, it's going to sound like this. With it. So is that worth $150 to you? I don't know. So most likely that's what it's going to do. It's just going to color it. Now you got to find the right coloring with playing around with this. So I think I'm just going to stick with that sound right now because I don't want to keep tweaking it and tweaking it and tweaking it. Is the amp distortion versus pedal distortion. If you go too high on this, like right now, I've gone way too high on this. If you go too high on this, right, it's going to start sounding thinner. Like we talked about, if you followed this channel from before, even the thrash, you know, like people like James Hetfield has said that the distortion should come from the amp. So if it comes from the pedal, it's not going to have the guts, it's not going to have that note definition, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to reduce this because we're not getting that note definition. Reduce this, and then just keep the gain on the amp at about 7 or 8. Now we have note definition. You see what I'm saying? So you don't want to basically have too much gain on it. Then it's really just like a coloring pedal. Much, you know, no different than just any other pedal that sits on top of it in a kind of a booster configuration. Remember we talked about booster configuration? So again, I'll play that riff. So that is without it. Here's with it. So that sounds more like a Marshall to me. So I'm going to roll off the high tones a bit. Sort of undo that high end bit I did here. So I think I'm satisfied with that. I mean, I could sit here and tweak this for 8 hours. You know, and trying to find that perfect thing. Which, when you come in here tomorrow, it'll be different anyway. That sounds a little good. Maybe I should go a little bit back on that. I made little changes and now it's fucked up again. So I lost that balance. I don't know that well. I have to practice it. So yeah, I mean, I don't know, dude. You just have to keep playing with it. So it's almost like this, it just sort of adds a shimmer to it, and that's it. I'm trying to get you the right right side. So yeah, it's gonna take a little bit of getting used to because it's like a different kind of thing. So that's pretty much it. So I'll leave you with this album and that album. That's too much yet? Alright guys, so that's it. I would make up your own mind. Try to play around with it, if you could find it somewhere. And then go from there. Don't take my word for it. The thing here is that you're going to have to sort of find the right setting. And that's probably the biggest problem here is that there's no recommendations in this booklet. Right? Sometimes what happens is that in certain booklets, they actually tell you, okay, for metal do this, or for like, rock do this, or they have settings. This book didn't really come with any settings, I think. So anyway, you have to play around with it. My second day impression versus the first day impression is that now it's like, wait a minute, it looks like it's not as great as I thought it was going to be. But anyway, like I said, your mileage might vary, so don't take my word for it. You should try it out. This is the coloring. So approach it as that. Great for DSL-1 people that could sort of give you sort of a Marshall kind of tone. Is it JCM 800? I don't know. I've never played a JCM 800 before, so you just got to muck around with it. But very sensitive to where you just have too many levers and too many controls to dial it in. And you could basically spend the whole day just going a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit there, and trying to dial it in, right? Alright then, hope this helps.